Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, Custom Carving and Epoxy UK. I hope you're all doing well. So this video is going to be a little bit different, but I'm going to be trying to fit almost 3 different projects into one. So I'm going to try and keep it quite quick so it doesn't go too long. But the reason why is you've probably noticed in my projects, they're getting bigger. So I'm getting some really big projects now as well happening where they're sort of using, I don't know, anywhere up to sort of 24 ounces of resin, like this giant sort of tray. And do you know what? I love these bigger projects because, do you know, you can use them as wall art, you can use them as a clock if you wanted to or anything like that. But the problem is they use 24 ounces of resin, which is an awful lot of resin. And these small bottles that you normally buy your resin in just won't cut it. So I've been looking at resins and I've been looking for a new one. I've seen a few of Steve McDonald's videos where he uses a resin from T-Expert, and I looked around and there's a sale on Amazon at the minute where I can get 2 gallons for around about just over £80 UK, which is quite affordable. So if I get good results from this, I'm probably going to be continuing to use it because £80 for 2 gallons is almost half the price of some of the other resins that I've been using. It's a standard 1-to-1 resin, looking at it. Comes with 2 stirrers, your 2 gallons of resin, and you get, I think, 5 pairs of these gloves. So the biggest projects that I've been experimenting with lately are probably blooms, because I love the way that they come out, Petri effect in jewellery, and clear crystal effect. So I'm going to mix up, just to test this resin out really, nothing else, but I'm going to mix up around about 10 ounces of resin, and in this 2 gallons I think it's something like 220 fluid ounces of resin. So hopefully I should be able to get a good fair few projects out of these if it's a good resin. So I'm just going to mix it up as normal. Because I'm going to be doing about 10 ounces, I'm going to use a big silicone bowl, and I've already measured out with these 2 little lines where I'm going to be mixing to. Then I'm going to separate it out into 3 separate cups, 1 for each project. So there's going to be, as I say, some Petri effect pendants, a bloom, and hopefully some crystal effect resin projects. So I'm going to separate it into the 3 separate cups once I've mixed it. And then we'll see what we get. In fact, I might do 2 separate cups actually. We'll see how we go, but no, we'll see. But yeah, it's as I say, 2 gallons is a lot of resin. So there we go, 128 ounces for each one. So that's 256 ounces of resin that you're getting for around about £80. And I will put a link in the description down below. I'm not sponsored in any way by T-Expert. I haven't even really spoken to them. I have got an affiliate code just because I went on the website and thought I'd see if I can get one, which is going to be ccukresin, but this is not sponsored in any way. I've bought this with my own hard-earned cash, and I just want to see what effects we get with this T-Expert resin. So that's what this video is about. I'm going to mix it up, see what sort of consistency we get first of all, then put it in the debubbling machine and then go from there. So as always, I'm going to start with the hardener, and I'm guessing I'm going to have some pull-outs, which I have on the end. So most resins, especially with these bigger containers, you've got like these pull-out strips where you need to actually pull out like so. Now you can put them back in, and actually it's a good way to almost protect yourself a little bit. So just make sure that if you knock it over or anything like that, you don't get any spillages. Now I'm just double checking which marks are the correct ones. So it's the bottom one and that one, because I'm going to be doing about 10 ounces is what I'm going for here. And that should give me enough to trial all 3 of the projects that I normally work with quite a bit and just test out the resin. So it feels a similar consistency to me to the Let's Resin 1-to-1 at the minute, but that's just the hardener. So I'm going to put the resin in as well. And again, don't be afraid to put these plugs back in. As long as you're not mixing the 2 up, they'll come out just as easily next time you use that resin. And if you're limited on space, you won't be able to keep everything on your workspace. That's one of the things I find. So that was the hardener. Now for the resin. I'm guessing the resin will be slightly thicker. usually is. So that is there, and then I'm just going to fill this up to my second line, which should give me 10 ounces. There we go. But yeah, it looks like a quality resin from what I've seen, and I always do a lot of research before I buy anything, especially if I'm going to be spending sort of £80 on something. It's a lot of money. So I'm hoping to get some good effects, because if I do, as I say, it's about half the price of some of the other resins that I've been using. And I think it's always about trying to look for that next resin that's good, but affordable. Seems to mix quite well. I would say it's a medium viscosity to me, maybe just bordering on the low side. So it's a medium viscosity, which isn't a bad thing actually, because a lot of the projects I don't want it to be too thick. So again, just going to mix this around for 5 minutes. I'm going to fast forward it, then put it in the bubble removal machine, and then we'll see where we go from there. So it seems to mix really well actually. I'm liking the way it mixes pretty quickly actually, because already I haven't got any streaks in there, and it's only been a couple of minutes of mixing. So again, they always say 3 to 4 minutes. Just make sure when you're mixing, you're scraping your sides and the bottom so that you don't get any uncured resin. But I'm confident that that is now mixed up. So I'm going to split it into 3 separate containers now. And always remember to wipe your stick. You get these stirring sticks with them as well, which are silicone, which are very useful. So again, eventually I'm hoping to not have to use the wooden popsicle sticks, as you call them, because I'm hoping that I'll have enough of these silicone stirrers that they'll become not required. So there we go. So that is that mixed up. Now, as I say, I'm going to be doing a bloom. I'm going to be doing some crystal effect molds, and I'm going to be doing some Petri pendants. So I am going to split it into 3. So I know I need about 4 ounces for my bloom mold. Also guys, I have re-leveled my table. So this morning I was trying to sort of get to why my dragon scale effect hasn't been fully working, and I've been sort of getting it around the edges, if you see there, but not in the center. And I think it's because my surface that I've been working on has become unlevel over the last couple of months. So what I've done is I've got a spirit level, and I've just re-leveled everything out so it's as level as I can get it. So hopefully that will help with those results. So just gonna pour 4 ounces into one of these, 4 ounces into the other, and then whatever's left in the other. I think it should be about 2 ounces if my maths is correct. So and that's very strange. Oh, there we go. So fluid ounces is there on these cups. So that is 4 ounces for my bloom, 4 ounces for my crystal piggy and starfish, which I'm going to do, which should leave, if I've measured correctly, around about 2 ounces for my Petri effect pendants. And as I say, it seems to be a medium viscosity resin, but probably on the low side as well. So it's not particularly thick, which, as I say, it's not an issue because I actually don't want it to be too thick. I actually think some resins, when you get them and you mix them, they're almost too thick. So it makes it an absolute pain to do certain projects and experiments, because some of them will only work with a low to medium viscosity resin, or work better, should I say, with those. So there we go, that's pretty much all of that out. And now I'm just gonna wipe the side of this cup and then put it in my debubbling machine for 5 minutes. Again, I use the Resin's bubble removal machine, the Airless Pro, which can fit 3 of these cups in. So again, if you are in the market for one of these bubble removal machines, there is a discount code in the description, which is CCUK for those as well. So I'm just going to put that in the bubble removal machine, and then we'll come back in 5 minutes when it's done. Here we go, guys. So that's had 5 minutes in the debubbling machine, and it's crystal clear. So that is a good start. Now, I'm going to start off with these crystal molds, because obviously the bloom resin, I want to get up to temperature anyway. So I'm pretty confident that it won't be anywhere near temperature at the minute. 22 degrees, so that's going to take 10 or 15 minutes to get up to temperature. Now, I thought I'd be a little bit different this time with these clear ones, and I wanted to see, I've done a lot of sort of ocean themed starfish, but I wanted to see if I could get almost a natural looking one with a bit of the Petri. And then for the pig, I'm going to add a little bit to give it almost a pinkish glow. Let's say, going to use one of these, doesn't really matter which one, they've both got 4 ounces in. I'm going to go for this one. And I'm going to pour, in fact no, I'm going to pour directly into the mould because again, I don't know how much I need, and if I've got any spare, I want to use that. So, I could tint the resin here, but I think that will take away from the crystal effect. So, on this one, I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to fill it up. And I'm going to use my alcohol inks. And this takes the tiniest bit of resin. But it's one of my favourite moulds at the minute, this little starfish, because of the crystal effect. And I just want to make sure he's completely full. Almost like that. So there's still about a tiny bit. There's 1 mil of space. And then, instead of going with an ocean theme like I normally do, we know that sort of starfish tend to be orangey, or at least sort of a shade of orange, typically, the ones that I've seen anyway. So all I'm going to do is just make sure there's no bubbles. So there is a couple of bubbles there on him. And remember, with these handmade moulds, you can't use any flames to get rid of it, or alcohol. So you're just literally teasing them up to the top and hoping that the alcohol ink, if you use them on, will burst them. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go with orange and yellow alcohol inks from Let's Resin. And that's all I'm going to do for this one. And I think one in the centre, one in each leg. And that's a lovely deep orange colour for the starfish. And then just to add a little bit of dimension to it, I'm going to add a drop of yellow, and I'm running out of this yellow, so I need to be careful. So that is that one. Just as I say, that drop of yellow there, I think that'll add a bit of different dimension to him. Then I'm going to add in some white sinker. And I just use the white sinker from Let's Resin, Sea Deeper. And then I'm going to stir it in about 20 minutes and he will be done. Now this is a slightly watered down version as well of the white sinker, just because I watered it down in one of my last experiments, but it still tends to come out with a good Petri effect. So hopefully we'll get some good results. And as you can see now, this mould is completely full. So that's that done for now, and I'll come back to that in about 20 minutes time and give it a stir. So that is a pretty straightforward project. Loving the colours though already, and it looks, hopefully you'll agree, like the colour scheme of a natural starfish. Now just carefully moving this guy across over here where he's going to cure. And then next what I'm going to do is this little pig mould. And again, it's a crystal pig. You've seen me do a couple of these in previous videos. But what I am going to do this time is add a little bit of glitter and a little bit of colour. So hopefully we get that crystal effect, and we get to see how crystal clear this resin is. And in fact, I am going to do a separate pendant as well when I move on to that, just leaving it completely clear so we can see what it cures like clear, this resin. But as you can see, got this tiny pinkish white glitter, which I quite like the effect of last time I used it. So again, the tiniest bit, might need a smaller stick, just to give it a little bit of something extra. I think that's enough. And then I'm going to add 2 drops of this peach red, which actually is a really bright pink from Let's Resin. Okay, I went with 3. And it should just give it a light tint. Nothing more than that, but I just wanted to see what that would look like in this little pig mould. So again, just stirring it round. Be gentle at this point, because it's already been through the bubble removal machine and I don't particularly want to put it back in again. So as you can see, we've got a nice pinky colour with some bits of glitter in there, which is what I wanted for this experiment. Call it an experiment, it's more of a project because we know what it will come out like. But yeah, it's just giving it that shade of pink. So with this mould as well, if you've never worked with these handmade moulds, you're better off half filling it first, swirling it around and then filling it to the top. So it can be a little bit finicky, but I just try and grab one of these flaps and I try and pour it directly onto the mould to prevent any air bubbles. And it's important to remember with these moulds as well, guys, that you can't touch the inside, the crystal effect, with your hands. Can't use alcohol, can't use flames on them, otherwise you will ruin your mould. So that is probably about half full now. So now all I'm going to do is just squidge it around the sides, tip it from side to side to make sure I'm getting the snout and the tail fully submersed in resin. Resin. I think I was mixing it up with my dog there, Reggie. But yeah, just literally squidging it around, trying to get any of those bubbles to come to the top if there is any. And I found that this has worked really well. Now with this mould as well, what you've got to be conscious of is these legs, because once it all settles down, these can become hollow unless you go back and fill them back up, but we'll come to that in a second. So I've done that, given it a bit of a squidge around. Hopefully any of those bubbles are now at the surface. And now what I'm going to do is just lift up again. Now this is where you have to be a little bit creative, I think. And then I'm going to try and fill it almost to the top, but not quite. Again, slow and steady. And I'm hoping that I've got enough resin here. I might not have. I might have underestimated how much this little piggy takes. So I'm going to steal a little bit from another pot. In fact, I used the wrong one. So yes, I am going to steal a bit from this one, because this is the one for my pendants, and I think I mixed up my my cups there. There we go. So again, this could give us a cool effect, a slightly lighter shade mixed in with the dark shade. Don't know. So this has gone a little bit lighter, and most of that glitter's already in there, but when I pour it in, I think it will mix up nicely anyway, so I'm not concerned. And what I'd done there is I used the 2 ounce one that I put to the side for the pendants, rather than the 3.5 ounces that I had put aside for this little piggy. So again, just filling him up all the way. Pretty much that's just under the surface now. So he's not full, as you can see. And now I'm just going to squidge it up and down. And you can see the resin poking through when I do this. And the goal here is to get rid of as many bubbles as you can. So what I use is a silicone stick, and then before fully filling it is I'll just go around these flaps, because that's where they like to sit in these moulds. And you will always get a couple of bubbles, I think, no matter how careful you are, but you want to limit how many, just by literally scraping around these flaps on the side like so, and hopefully that is going to get any of those bubbles that may be attached out. So that is pretty much full, but not quite. So I just want to make sure it's full to the top, so I know I can fit in probably a few more dots in there, but he's almost full. So this is where you need to be a little bit careful about the speed in which you're adding the resin. And what I'm going to do is just try and fill it through the legs now, and literally really slowly. It should still fill. And literally, this is how small I want to get those drops. There we go, I've got a nice little stream now. And with these projects, guys, the more time you take with them, the better they're going to turn out. So if it takes a little bit more effort or a little bit more time, my advice is do it. So that is that leg. Now I'm going to go across to this one and make sure that it's full on this side as well. Should be. Because I think the mould is pretty much there now. Again, just going to put a drop here. And then what I'm going to do is just let that settle now to one side. I've still got some resin left, so what I can do is I can come back in about 10-20 minutes, see how it's all settled, and then top it up if I need to. But again, I've got some spare as well that I can just put into one of these pendant molds. So that is that. Just going to check the temperature of the 4 ounces of resin now. 25.6, so we've still got time. So what I'm going to do is try and clear some space to this side, and we'll do some Petri pendants. Remembering that I'm still going to need space this side for my bloom. So again, just moving that to one side, trying to keep organised, but when you've got 3 projects on the go at once, it's not the easiest. So there we go. Hopefully you guys can still see that. And this is just my standard jewellery mould that I like to use. So I've got about 2 ounces of resin in here. And all I'm going to do with this is fill the pendants that I want to put the Petri effect into. And if you can hear snoring in the background, I apologise, it's my dog. And again, with these, just remember as well, you don't want them all the way to the top with these cabochons, because you need room to put your alcohol inks in as well. So you need to always leave, I'll just probably say a couple of mil. And then if you get some good effects as well, you can always back them, which sometimes gives you a crazy result. But this is just really for me to test the resin and to see if I can still get my standard effects, what I normally get with other resins that I've tried using this T-Expert 1-to-1 resin. I don't see why I shouldn't, because consistency wise, clarity wise and everything, it looks very similar to the other ones that I've been using. But you never know until you actually test it. And again, I know, I think it was Steve McDonald has used this resin quite a lot, and he raves about it and says that there's no problem with yellowing or anything like that, which is always a concern when you're trying a new resin. But I know that he raves about it, used it on his channel an awful lot, so hopefully that means it's good. But you never know until you try something yourself. Again, just going around, filling the moulds. And again, sorry if this bit's a little bit boring. I don't know how to make filling cabochon moulds exciting yet, but I'm working on it. And actually I might have a bit much resin here for what I was planning, but it's always better to have more than less, because whatever I don't use I can always put into a spare mould. But do me a favour guys, whilst you're here as well, if you've not already, just like and subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, put something in comments. It all helps the channel out, and it hopefully keeps us growing. We've just gone over 6,700 subs, which is amazing. Thank you to each and every one of you, and I'm hoping we can keep the growth going. Be nice to hit 10,000 if we can before Christmas. So do me a favour, just like and subscribe to the channel. Also, the shop on Etsy is going to be stocked back up over the next few days. So there's going to be lots in there, and there's going to be a special sale for you guys as well, because I know Christmas is around the corner. And if there's anything you like, I want to be able to give you a discount, because Christmas is the season of giving. I don't want to do too many of these, but I just want to do enough so that we can see whether or not we're getting that effect. I probably could have got away with 1 ounce for these, actually, thinking about it. So there we go. This is pretty much the cabochons that I want. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill these small squares as well up here. And then if I remember, I'm going to leave those completely clear, so that hopefully we can see what this cure's like just clear. I don't think I've ever used those either, so it should be a nice shiny mould to test. And then I've still got a little bit of clear left, so I'm going to save that. I'm sure I'll find a use for it in a minute. But that is pretty much the cabochons that I wanted to get filled, and I'm just going to try and move you across a little bit, so that we can try and get an angle. There we go. So these ones I've left clear, and I'm deliberately leaving them clear because for me, I just want to see what this cure is like clear. And as you can see, I've got a tiny bit of resin left in there, but I'll find a use for it. Don't worry about that. And now all I'm going to do is drop my inks on these. No particular order, I'm just grabbing them. There's no bubbles on the top, so literally just putting a few drops here and there. Now I'm not going to use much of this peach red because this is the only colour that I have problems with muddying. So I'm going to leave that out now and not put it in anymore. And it doesn't seem to matter which colour I use. If I try and use it with that peach red, for some reason I get muddying. So the inks are spreading nicely on it as well, which is good to see. And this is going all over the place. As you can see, I have a very random way of doing my inks. Whatever colour comes out the box pretty much is what I use. And actually it seems to be spreading more than when I've used another resin, but we'll see. And with these I'm going to try not putting too much colour in. Maybe just 2 colours in some of them, because I think on some of my pieces, I think that's where I've gone a little bit too far on colours. I've put too many colours in and then it's gone really dark. And I think the key is, I've got a nice magenta here. The key is probably 2 or 3 colours is probably what I would limit it at. Otherwise you'll get too much mixing and almost muddying. But literally just 2 or 3 colours is all you need. If you want to keep it looking nice and light, I've got some Sagilite here as well, which is a slightly different red. And as you can see, there's no particular order that I'm going in with. It's just whatever order they're coming out the box. And again, it'll be interesting to see what, if any, effects we get. And I'm still working with testing different colours and how they blend, how they mix, how to try and avoid muddying. Emerald green. That's that one. And I'm almost there, guys. These are almost filled. I've got a lemon yellow there as well. And one of my favourite blues, which is this cerulean. So now I think we're pretty much there. This is just a lemon yellow, and it's a great one just to fill in any sort of transparent bits you might have, because it doesn't tend to muddy with any other colours, but gives you a nice little bit of colour. And then I'm going to put 2 more drops of colour in those, and then I think we're done. What have I got here? Dark magenta, that will do, which is more of a purpley colour. Try that with the green. Oops, a few too many went in there. And as you can see, if you put too many in, they start muddying or mixing too much. So just going to put all of these away because I need room for my bloom. But as you can see, there's those inks. Nicely put on the surface now, and now I'm just going to go over each one with that white sinker and then leave those for about an hour for a stir, and then hopefully the resin will be up to temperature to do the bloom. Again, you don't want too much, and ideally you want sort of 1 drop per colour that you put in. And as I say, this is actually a watered down version of that white sinker, because in a different experiment I just wanted to see what effect it would have, and so far, touch wood, it still has quite a good Petri effect. And you just want to make sure you've covered the whole of the surface with your white sinker. Probably 2 or 3 drops in the smaller ones. a little bit more in your bigger ones. But I love doing this and just watching those inks dance. It's one of the best bits for me of working with resin. And if I get some transparent pot spots, I'm not fussed. I actually think it looks quite good in a finished pendant. I'm just making sure I've got all of them. I think I have now. And the great thing with this being diluted is I don't need to worry as much about overdoing it and getting that sort of blobbing effect. Because if I put 2 layers on, it still doesn't create the blobs. So I'm happy with that. That is my colours pretty much mixed up. I'm going to leave those for an hour now and see what temperature this resin is at the side for the bloom. Wow, you're getting 3 projects in one here. So that is up to 31, 33 degrees, which is pretty much where I want it. So I'm just going to move everything to the side now to give me room for that bloom. That rhymes, I'm a poet and I didn't know it. You'll have to excuse the cheesy jokes. I'm going to use this flower mould as well that I've been using quite a lot recently, just because I think it comes out with some really cool effects. And I think even if you don't get the perfect bloom with it, you've still got a flower shape. So you can pass it off as a bloom. So there we go. And then what I'm going to do is just pick, I think, 2 different colours at random from my mica box, because I've been doing a lot of blooms that are pretty much the same colours. Well, that's interesting. The first 2 I picked out, one's almost a gold and one's an orange, so I think they'll look good. And then I'm going to be using my ocean white as well for the petals. So this is going to be a mica based bloom if it works. And I do say if, because they don't always work out. So I'm going to need 3 separate cups. And I love using these little paper cups as well because they are disposable, these little espresso ones. And that's for my 3 different colours. I'm going to get my piping bags ready as well, because I'm going to pipe these, because just for me it gives you an extra layer of control, and whenever I've done them without piping them, I have found more problems with blobbing. So just standard small piping bags. I'm going to snip the tops off these because they're far too big, and I'll be right back in a second. I'm running out of space here. But just going to get these ready as well with the piping bags so I can just pour it in. This is the problem when you try 3 or 4 projects at once. And I'm just conscious of the temperature as well. So I want it, because I think this is a medium-ish viscosity, probably want it at 34, 35 degrees. So we're okay at the minute, providing it hasn't jumped up. Again, just getting these piping bags ready to pour those colours into. I really could do with a bigger workshop or a bigger workspace. But unfortunately, you've got to do with what you've got sometimes. And have I got another silicone pot? Not out, so I'm going to use one of these big ones just to pour it into. Right, so temperature wise, I'm just going to give it a quick check again. Perfect, 33.7. It's going to be perfect when I pour it. So as I say, I'm going to be using this gold and this orange that I picked out randomly. And I always do about half a pot of the colours, and any extra goes in spare moulds. No alcohol inks in this one, guys, either. Just going to be using the mica, pardon me, and the resin. So that is the resin for my colours done. The rest of it can go in here, and hopefully it'll just give me around about a quarter, about maybe half a centimetre of resin for the bloom to go into. and I'm hoping that I have properly leveled out my surface now. I'll find out shortly. You always want to have your surface as level as possible as well, guys, when you're working with blooms, because otherwise they'll shift and all sorts, you'll get all sorts of problems. So try and make sure your surface is level. I did, as I say, use a spirit level just to re-level this surface out before this experiment, so hopefully it's reasonably level. So as you can see, reasonably even spread there. I could probably do with a tiny bit more. So I'm just going to pour this in just to make sure that I've got a reasonably even coverage all the way around this bloom. There we go. Now it's already dropped its temperature now I've done that, so I should be okay. But I'm just going to go around the edge, get rid of any of those bubbles, and I am still trying to get a move on because I am conscious now. It's been probably about 20-25 minutes and I still want the bloom to have time to take effect, which I don't know the exact working time of this resin. I think it's 45 minutes, so I should be okay. And all I'm trying to do is tease any of those bubbles up to the surface like that. Just going to wipe my stick. So that is pretty much there. I'm just going to torch the top and any of those bubbles that I've teased up to the top. Now, at this point, if you wanted to use alcohol inks, it's when you'd put your alcohol inks on. Try not to get as close to the sides of your mould, because what you'll find is it can fuse the resin to your mould as well, which you don't want. So I'm going to mix up my white first, which is this, as I say, ocean white, and all I need for a cup of this size is 1 drop. It's really concentrated and you don't want it too thick. So that is my white. I think this is a gold anyway. As I say, I've never used these. Randomly picked out from a mica box. I've got a box of like 100 different micas. And it's interesting actually that it was orange and gold, because they're colours that I've used before. But there we go. I was hoping for something a bit more random. And with your micas as well, guys, remember, you don't need a lot. A little bit goes a long way. So literally that sort of much is all I'm putting in. So that's my gold. You can always add more as well, but you can't take it back out. So just remember that. Try and go lighter rather than heavier, because the more mica you add as well, the heavier your paste is going to be, and the more chance you're going to have of blobbing. That's almost that papaya colour that I use a lot. Very interesting. Again, just using the tiniest bit of this. And you can mix your micas into your bloom paste, and that creates a very different effect, but that's probably for another experiment. So again, similar sort of amount, just in there, and that is that. So that is my micas in, hopefully, and I'm just gonna mix up my white first, make sure that's the right consistency that I want it at. And what I have been doing as well is I've been adding 2 or 3 drops of the white sinker to it, just because I saw somebody say that it makes the bloom spread a little bit better. Honestly, I don't know if it does, but I've always got white sinker by the side of me, so it doesn't hurt to actually add a few drops of that white sinker. Again, make sure you mix it thoroughly. And what you're looking for is almost opaque, but not quite. If you look there, I can still see the stick in the back, so hopefully that'll be about right. So I'm going to get that one poured into this bag, and anything spare I will always use in a drip mould, which currently is a drip dragon again, and he's almost full, so I'm hoping to get a little bit spare so then I can demold him as well. There we go. So that is my white. As I say, I'm running out of space, but I'll find a way. Next I'm going to do the orange. As you can see, the tiniest bit of mica makes a big difference. This one's almost translucent as well, so that'll be interesting to see what it blooms like. My other papaya is more sort of opaque when I mix it, but this one's got a translucent effect. So again, that's going to be interesting to see if we see it. And again, just really scrape your cups. Make sure you've not left any unsettled pockets of mica, but I love that colour again. And I think it will go really well with the gold. So the random selection worked. So again, just going to pour that in there. There we go. Scrape everything I can out. There we go. And that is my orange. And then next, my gold. I'm hoping it's not going to be too heavy with the amount that I put in, because it was a tiny amount. And what you find with gold, you've got to be really careful, because if you put too much in, it's just going to overtake absolutely everything. But that's quite a light gold actually, I like that. And I can feel these starting to warm up now, so I think timing wise, I'd say it's about perfect. So what I'm going to do is, because I've run out of these silicone pots at the side, I'm just going to get this one ready. So literally all I do, get it in the bag, squeeze it all the way down, like so, and then twist it. And then that should be ready for me to pipe with. And then I'm going to put this in here for a second, because it shouldn't leak. And then the final one for my gold. And let me know in comments, guys, if you're liking the content. Do you think I'm trying to do too much in one go to test this resin? Let me know. Again, just pouring the gold in. So this is a really light gold actually, so I need to remember that in case I want a lighter shade of gold in my dragon scale projects or things like that. There we go, so that is my gold as well. Right, and now we're pretty much there, ready to pipe, I think. Again, just getting that gold down, giving it a twist, and that one's now ready as well. Now what I would always do before you start piping is make sure you've got some kitchen roll at the side of you, or a baby wipe, something like that, because you're probably going to need it. And this is the white. And I'm not putting anything in the centre. In fact, have I got some spare resin? Yes, I have. So I have got some almost iridescent stones that I've been wanting to see what they look like in a bloom for a while. And I've just not had the right project. So I am going to put a few of those in the centre and just see what they look like. So again, these were just from Temu, but I quite liked them. So just going to put a few of those, not too many, in with this clear resin. I think that's enough. Mix that around with the clear so they're all covered in that nice clear resin, and then put some in the centre. I'm trying to get it as central as I can. And they will spread out a little bit, but not as much as glitter. And glitter can be an absolute pain if you use it in the centre of blooms, because it will just spread absolutely everywhere. Come on. But I was just intrigued with them almost being like iridescent glass, they look like to me, as to what they would look like in the centre of a bloom. Will I still get those nice colours popping through or not? I just want to make sure I haven't wasted any. And there is some air bubbles coming in from this, but I was expecting that, to be honest with you. And I've got one that's just flowing over there. Which is not what I wanted. But what I'm going to do is just get my tool and move it to the side, back into the centre. gently as I can, and then just make sure that these are all flat and reasonably central, like so. And again, I don't know what they're going to look like, but it's just an experiment whilst we're here. And now I'm just going to give that a torch, one last torch, and then it's time to pipe. So I think I'm going to start with my white. As I say, I'm really running out of space here trying to do 3 projects at once, but we'll get there. And the temperature of that now, that's 29.5 again, so it's gone back up to about 30 degrees. Because what you find is when you pour the resin in, the temperature comes down and then goes back up, which is what creates the bloom, I believe. So I'm going to go in with the white first. And as I say, I'm probably going to, I want this quite thick, so I'm going to snip it off almost where the resin is. And then the plan is, if my scissors actually cut, which this pair doesn't seem to want to, I said, and as the plan is after that, I want to do the others a little bit thinner. So the white is still the main colour. There we go. And that is now naturally just falling out, which is what you want. And I'm going to start in the edges. With this white. And hopefully that'll create a really nice petal effect. Trying to keep it the same thickness without blobbing. And there we go, so that's that. Then I'm going to go around in a spiral effect. And just almost try and connect everything. Not quite though, because I'm going to be putting my petals in anyway. And that is pretty much it. I'm going to put, again, a smaller little line just in there. And just try and give it that wispiness as well on these outer petals. And there we go. So that's my white. Done. I'm just going to flip that over on itself so hopefully it doesn't leak all over. Next I'm going to go in with my orange. Really fluorescent this, so it'll be very interesting. See what it comes out like. And again, I'm going to probably try and do the same, but just in between these different layers. And again, I don't know if this is going to work, guys. It's more to test the resin than to get the perfect bloom. But again, those of you that watch the channel know that I like to have fun with my blooms and see if I can get different effects from using different micas, different patterns, different colour schemes. Right, so that is my spiral, and then I'm just going to go, it's quite a thin mica, this one. Again, just in between those, and hopefully that will create a cool effect. So that is my orange. Again, I'm just going to flip that up. And then last colour, last but not least, is my gold. And again, that's dripping nicely. So again, I'm just going to try and go in between if I can. And then I'm going to try and still spiral it round. I don't know if I've got too much mica happening here though, where we might get blobs, because there's a lot going in, and then just going to go around like this. And I think we are about there. So that is, again, the gold, the orange and the white, and then we'll find out in the next 20 minutes or so if that starts to bloom. Now I've got quite a bit of resin spare, so I'm just thinking I've got pink, I've got clear, and I've got these 3 separate colours. So what I might do, I don't think I've got 4 ounces, so I can't do a frog, but the snails that I tend to do, they only take up about 2 ounces of resin. I think I'm going to have enough to fill one of those. So I'm going to do that, in fact, the snail. And I can see that's starting to bloom already. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the petals in before we go any further. And again, just using my dotting tool, all I'm doing is trying to tickle the surface, and I'm coming from out in on every one of these petals. Should also help any blobs when you do this. There we go, so that is those. And then I'm going to come almost all the way out with these, which normally I don't. Normally I do it about halfway because it gives us that different petal effect. I'm going to go from this sort of inner white out. So this inner white line, pulling them out. So it's already starting to bloom as well, so pretty hopeful with this one if I'm being honest, but I'm hoping it blooms and doesn't blob. Just going to give it a torch, and then that should be that ready to go, and hopefully we'll get a nice bloom with that. I don't know. I wouldn't put money on it, but we'll find out. So what I'm going to do with the rest of this spare resin that I've got now is, actually, will I have enough? I'm just weighing it up here. No, I've probably only got 2 ounces. So weirdly, I'm just going to mix it all together in this snail mold and hope that I've got enough as well to fill my dragon drip mold. So there's actually a few rocks left in here as well, but that is okay. They can go in here. Probably best to not do that over my bloom. There we go, so just getting every drop of resin out of these cups. And then I'm going to go in with the pink leftover that I had from the pig, which is, again, I've got about 1 ounce left there, so I might have been able to do it. But again, with these snail molds, it's these antennas that you need to really make sure they get filled, because that will make or break your piece. So what I tend to do is just get it in there, whatever resin I'm using. So this guy's probably going to end up with pink antennas, which is going to be a little bit weird, and then squeeze in and out all of those antennas. And then if needs be, use your dotting tool and actually push it in there to try and make sure that you're getting resin in those antennas. Because if you don't, what will happen is you'll just get an air bubble and they'll snap, which is not what you want, I'm sure. But again, just keep persisting until you know they're full. Yeah, I might still have some spare after this, you know. But yeah, literally just keep squeezing them. It takes a little bit of time, but eventually they do fill up. And what you've got to be conscious of is you don't want an air bubble in there. Otherwise, as I say, when you come to demold, it will just snap, and that is not what you want. I think that's that side. Hard to tell with this being a semi-transparent one, but what I'll do to fix that is just put some of the white in as well, so that I can actually see. And I'm still not confident that that antenna is filled. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. I just want to get the other colours in here. Right, so if you can see, the antennas there still don't look filled to me. So again, I'm just going to persist with my stick, almost trying to force that resin in. And I'm hoping that is filled, but it's hard to tell as well with these semi-translucent ones. But I think that's about as much as I can do. And so I'm really trying to push resin into it, so hopefully that is there. And you make a right mess. But I won't know now until demold. So again, just forcing as much as I can, giving it another squeeze. I'm praying that it's filled, but I'm not convinced. Not convinced this time. So a bit more of this white. I'm saving a little bit of this though for my dragon's final layer. He hopes. So, because I just think the white, the golds and the oranges would look better as a final layer on the dragon than the glittery pink. But actually, once it's gone into this snail, it'll probably all intermix into the other colours and you won't even see it. But yeah, I'm not convinced with the antennas on this one, so we'll find out at demold. We're just trying to completely fill it up now. And that looks like it's blooming lovely. So we'll see tomorrow. Don't know if I'll put a back on it or not yet. If I do, I'll probably do that off camera so that this video doesn't go over an hour. But yeah, just going to scrape out the rest of this pink and try and fill this mould now. But again, if you know me, you know I don't like to waste resin. So I'd much rather it go into a mould. A, it gives me something extra to demold, and B, if it turns out to be a nice piece, it'll be a nice piece. So that is that. That's pretty much all of that pink. Now I am conscious here that I do want to make sure the snail is at least filled so I can demold. So again, I'm just going to use these like so, and then I'm going to top the rest into my dragon mould. Although I don't think I'm going to have enough now to do my dragon and the snail. I should have just filled the dragon. Oh well, he'll go on to the next project. And then I've got the orange. So again, just making sure that this snail is completely filled, which he is. And then I'm going to use the rest of this in the dragon. And you know what, it's so close, this dragon. It's literally probably a quarter of an ounce and it'll be full. But there's no point rushing, he'll be ready when he's ready. There we go. So I think that is all that resin used. I'm going to come back in probably about half an hour now and do the stir. But I'm not going to film that. I'm just going to come back at demold now, because as I say, it's probably quite a lengthy video. And it's more about the resin that I'm testing here than anything else. So I'll see you guys in the morning for demold. Morning guys, and it's the next day and it is time for demold, and I'm excited for this one because there's a lot to demold, just to test out this resin, how it's worked, and what effects, if any, we've got. So I should have, what I did do afterwards, I came back in with, I used that gel chum fast cure again just to put a back coat on these, and again it came out with a really weird effect, and I thought it'd be okay just to put a back coat on, but I'm not using that resin again. The only place that belongs is in the bin, I think. So not great. So I'm going to start off with the starfish. I'm just intrigued as to how this has come out with those orange sort of Petri colours. Again, really like that. It's got like those little spores in the legs again that we normally get. But I suppose it's just a more natural colour, and then I've got that swirl in the middle as well with that crystal effect. So that's the starfish. That's come out really well. And again, looking past the colours, I think with the resin it's crystal clear, so I'm happy with that. Next we'll go for the piggy. And this will be intriguing as to how he's come out. Wow, he's really pink. I didn't think it was going to be that pink, but there we go. A little bit of colour goes a long way. And again, it's just important to try not to touch the inside of this mould. There we go. So he is out. And again, come out really well actually. That almost fluorescent pink from that peach red alcohol ink. And then that tiny bit of glitter in there as well. I actually put a little one of those iridescent rocks in his feet as well as it was curing. You can't really tell, but really happy with him. Again, he's got that lovely crystal effect, and he's a pink little piggy, so he's turned out really well as well. No bubbles in there whatsoever either. So again, I'm really happy with this so far as a test of the resin. A little bit of overflow on the top, but you can always just peel that off. And you always get that with this mould just because the shape of the mould. But as I say, you can use a knife, or to be fair, when it's this thin, I just peel it off. And that is that gorgeous little piggy. So he's turned out well. Now I have got a confession to make as well, which I'll say after I've demolded this snail, if I can get him loose. Now the problem with these snails sometimes is the antennas. So far I've done about 5 of these. 3 have worked out and 2 haven't, so we'll see. There we go. And again, this bit is not the bit I'm worried about, it's the antennas on the head. I'm hoping I didn't get an air bubble, because if I got an air bubble or I didn't get resin in there, then there won't be any antennas. But there we go, no, they fully worked. So he's worked out as well, just by taking that time with the antennas, pushing the resin in there. And again, I think he looks great. So again, really good. That is the snail. Next, I'm going to do the bloom. Now, I have a confession to make. Whilst I was cleaning up my station after I'd finished the project, I did drop the mixing stick in about here. So if it's a slightly distorted bloom, we know why. But I'm intrigued. So far though, I'm really happy with the results from this resin, this T-Expert, especially at the price. Wow. And you know what? I love those iridescent sort of rocks as a centre there. And that has come out lovely. I'd say that's, in fact, I'd go as far as saying that's probably one of my best blooms. And I love the fact that it's not all just in one particular set pattern. It's quite natural, I think. And I love the gold shimmer just coming through those petals. Absolutely gorgeous. So I think that has been a success. And even though I dropped in the mixing stick, you can't tell. And those rocks have really worked actually as a centre. I really like that effect. Let me know what you think in comments, guys. But yeah, I'm absolutely loving that. One of my best blooms. So again, T-Expert works really well for blooms. And now I'm going to do a few of these Petri effect ones. So again, that's come out lovely. Again, it's a lighter Petri effect because it's a watered down Sinker White that I used. Bit of blobbing in that one. Maybe I went a bit heavy with the Sinker White. That one's nice, very nice. Just subtle Petri effect going through that heart, stunning. And again with that one as well, just that swirl in the centre, lovely piece. So far guys, I think this resin's a winner. Again, one of these deep ones. Now for some reason on these deep ones I do get some bigger spores on the side, which is a shame because I'm not a fan of those big spores. That's lovely, it's like a storm. And there's almost that little shimmer on the back as well. So that's nice. I'm going to have to make some pendants out of these. Now that, again, I don't know why on these deeper ones, but the Sinker White seems to pool, I think, at the sides. And it creates these larger spores going up the sides. It's still a nice piece though, and I actually like the different spores in that one. Same again with this one. And again, these round ones seem to get a bit of blobbing in that one, not so much in that one. But it's interesting because when I first started doing Petri, I never got any of this blobbing. And I'm just wondering if the recipe has changed. Because look at that, that is just mainly blobbing on that one. On this version 2 of the Sinker White. I don't know, is anybody else having any issues with it from Let's Resin? Let me know in comments. But since I've started using that and not the bottles that came in the Alcoholink set, it seems to be creating a bit more blobbing. Again, that's like a winter storm, that one. But again, I don't think that's the resin, I think that's the Sinker White. So I'm happy so far with these pieces and this resin. Again, just some tiny ones there. And these squares always seem to blob on me since I've started doing that, and they never did using the standard Sinker White that came in the set of 26 inks. It's since I've upgraded to this version 2 larger bottle, so I don't know, I might have to play around with diluting it a bit more. That's come out lovely, and again it's got a lovely shine on it from this resin. And then the last one on the Petri, again that's such a shame I got those blobs because I think that was lovely. So the resin works. I also had some spare black with this fast cure, so I just made it into a couple of black little key rings. Well, they will be key rings, should I say, when I turn them into key rings. And then, last but not least, I've got my Drip Dragon, which is probably a combination of different resins, to be honest with you, and different sort of colours that I've been using over the most recent projects. Wow. I think he's one of my favourite Drip Dragons yet. And there's a little bit of overpour just to peel off around the sides. But look at him. He's absolutely lovely. Let me know what you think in comments, guys. Which piece has been your favourite? But I really love these drip dragon effects just from using my spare drips of resin at the end of each project. And again, a little bit of cleaning up to do with the deburring tool because I slightly overfilled him, but that's not an issue. I can sort that. But I think he's my favourite one yet, and I've had about 4 or 5. I just love those different effects coming through. So let me know in comments, guys, which one's your favourite. If I'm being honest, for me, it's probably this bloom again, just because it's come out absolutely stunning. One of my favourite blooms so far, and there's not one piece of blobbing in there. So again, value wise, for just over 80 quid for 2 gallons, I would try out this Tea Expert. I will put a link to it in the description down below as well, on where you can get it and the cheapest way that I found it. But as a resin, I recommend it. And you know what, when you find a good one, stick with it, because I've also had some terrible effects like that Jiaochun Fast Cure. But if you've liked the content, do me a favour, like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you on the next one.